Today we're talking about financial advisors, and everyone should have one, but how do you choose the right financial advisor?
That's an important question. Here to take us through it, Omaha's retirement strategist, Darrell Bryant. He is one of Omaha's premier financial advisors. He's also the president of D. Bryant Retirement Strategies.
And he also hosts the Retirement Strategies radio show on 1110 KFAB right here in Omaha. Catch it Saturdays at 8 a.m. Darrell, good morning. How are you?
Wow,
Morning.
that's an awesome resume.
Quite a thing.
You're the guy.
We're talking about financial advisors today, so I guess let's get to the why. Why is it important to have a financial advisor?
Well, you know, I think you'd probably agree, anytime you have a good coach doing anything you're doing, right, or a good teacher, whether you're learning to play the guitar or, you know, running a football team or whatever, it's good to have somebody who's been down the road a couple times, you know, and successfully. So ideally you'd find a coach that is really specific to your stage of life, maybe has won a couple conference titles, that kind of thing, you know, but really is really drilled into what you are trying to accomplish at that stage of life. If it's college education planning and navigating that, tax reduction strategy specific, retirement strategies is an entirely different industry within the industry because there's so much to coordinate. So be real specific about what you're looking for, and there's some red flags that would indicate that you might not have the right person, you know, if you're approaching retirement. So we can talk about that.
Well, that brings us to this question of not all financial advisors being the same. I used to sort of think, well, yeah, I mean, if you've got somebody when you're 30, you just kind of stick with them until they retire or circumstances change. You have opened our eyes to this idea that having someone specific to that retirement phase is critical.
Well, sure. You know, Mary, if you were going to build a hospital, you might hire a different architect than if you're just going to build a residence, right? Or a church, or, you know, these types of things. Any more than you would go to a knee specialist, you know, if you're going to work on your knee. So the industry has evolved to such a degree, especially with 10,000 baby boomers turning 65 every single day, that we need to have a very specific segment of our profession that understands Social Security, Medicare, coordinating benefits. Should I be doing Roth conversions? Should I be doing Roths now that I'm 10 years away from retirement? These types of things. What am I going to do about maximizing Social Security, and then fold that into my income plan with my RMDs, you know, and tax management, and then estate preservation, getting the stuff to the kids. You know, it's a big deal. It's much more complicated than working with some folks that are, you know, trying to save some money to put their kids to college.
Yeah, and one of the things I think people forget to ask is to inquire about fees that a financial advisor might charge.
Yeah.
What should we ask? Like when you go in for that first meeting with a financial advisor, how do you address the topic of fees? How much do they get paid? You
know, that's one of the favorite things I like to talk about because it is the easiest way for us to improve our new clients' finances. So what you should be asking is, what you should understand, Mike, is you're having fees that are coming at you from two different directions. You have the fee that you're paying across the table, right, to that advisor with whom you're speaking, right? Hey, we're charging you 1% or whatever the number is. But the next question is, okay, but what about the stuff? You know, what about the stuff that I'm invested in? And the term that you want to use are expense ratios. So if you're paying 1% across the table, and then you're paying another 1.3 or something for the mutual funds, which is why we like index funds as opposed to mutual funds, well, suddenly we're at 2.3, 2.4%.
It's real money.
Yeah, it's real money. And it erodes your growth to such a degree. It's enormous over time. Just an extra point that's saved. Just that alone, I read a CNBC article where just 1% reduction at retirement in fees will extend your retirement by 10 years.
Wow.
You know, so I'm not sure how they did that math. We're going to check on that because there's a lot of ways to do math. But that's an interesting way to phrase that because it is very, very corrosive.
And a quick answer while we're asking questions about fees, credentials, and licenses, and how do you frame those questions?
Well, I would, if you're looking for the right financial advisor, number one, phase of life. You know, if you're approaching retirement, work with somebody that has a, you know, 60-year-old, 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 this is all we do all day long. That would be ideal. A fiduciary would be the next thing. And have you been a fiduciary for a while, not just because you're being mandated to be a fiduciary, which is coming down the pike. Then, do you have letters behind your name that are specific to my phase of life?
Got it.
Okay, so you should be right. If you're right at that retirement phase, we should be talking about, you know, fee reduction, portfolio design, index funds versus mutual funds, modern portfolio theory. We should be talking about new investment techniques. We should be talking about whether or not annuities might be appropriate or not, and which ones. And somebody that's certified in all of those things, so they can easily contrast this and say, here's what you ought to be thinking about, you know?
Yeah, we've got about a minute and a half left, but I want to ask
Okay.
you about red flags, because you mentioned that earlier. How do you know you're with the right person? Because a lot of times the financial advisor you're with is maybe somebody you know. It may be a friend or maybe a family member, somebody you went
That's
to
a good
school
point.
with.
Yep.
How do you know they're doing a good job, and are there any red flags you should keep an eye out for?
Well, how do you know they're doing a good job? First of all, boy, we could talk a long time about this, Mike. The first thing, if all you want to talk about is the custodianship of the dollars, all right, that really is, and that's all you're paying for, then that's easy because we can just run an x-ray on your accounts. It's called a Morningstar report. We're going to see expense ratios, implosion possibility, the risk that you're incurring, et cetera. But the red flag would be, I'm 62 years old, for example, I'm sitting with my advisor, okay? Now, my industry has devolved into just custodianship stuff, okay? We're not really doing planning, we're just doing, it's bothersome, okay? But I'm sitting with my advisor, we're having a review. He knows I'm 63, right? He knows I'm thinking about retiring in 3 years, and yet we're not, I'm the guy that has to bring up Social Security or income planning or survivorship issues or Roth conversions.
You want them taking the lead.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah.
Otherwise, who's directing the traffic and why would you be paying
You
the
got to be
fee?
a couple steps ahead.
Indeed. Yeah.
Well, listen, if you need help mapping out a plan for your retirement, call Darrell's office right now. He and his team will do a complimentary retirement readiness review for the first 10 qualified callers, and the number is 402-932-2141.
Yeah, completely free for the viewers who qualify. Look for more details on all that stuff coming up, because you got an exciting event coming up next month. It's Women's
We do.
Summit
Yeah.
coming up, and
I love this.
we'll get to more on that on your next visits.
Women's Summit. Yep.
Food,
Go to the
fashion,
website.
finance.
I'm sure we'll have something up on the website pretty
Yeah.
soon. It's going to be fun.
All right,
Going to have
thanks,
some
Darrell.
good vendors there too.
Thank you, Darrell.
Be great,
Thanks a
great
lot.
time.
Great to
Guests
see
of the
you.
Morning Blend start their day with